Hello, everyone. Welcome to Natty News, the nattiest news show in the world. My name is Anwar, and I'm joined once again with my great host, Pat. Pat, how are you doing?
Doing well, still in the cut, and I'm learning to. Being on a cut always means that I have to start cooking properly again instead of just eating garbage. So it's exciting.
I made this really good dish today of like quinoa and chicken thighs and mushrooms. And like, I know you can't eat mushrooms, but like, you can throw in any other like root vegetable, and I'm sure it would be good. And it was really tasty. Like, I'll send it over and all that. I've been eating a lot of quinoa as my main, like, I guess, carb recently, just because it's super filling. Like, a cup of quinoa just like, I don't know, like inflates in your stomach. It's like oatmeal, it just fills you up.
Do you genuinely like the taste of quinoa?
I think, like most carbs, it's just a vehicle for better flavorings. Like, no one eats like a bowl of pasta or rice with nothing on it. Like, it's just like it's a vehicle for better taste. Like, it's more of a textural thing. So I think it tastes okay, but I think really kind of how you cook it and like some of the protein or sauces you use really can affect it.
Nice, nice. I know you really like eggs, and today I learned how to make like the ramen eggs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've already been doing soft boiled eggs for a while, and for my stove it's 6.5 minutes, and it's like perfect every time. And today I just like afterwards just put in like a soy sauce, mirin, sesame oil, and sugar bath.
Oh man.
And oh man, I was they charge like 175 per egg for those, and I felt awesome. It was like the most simple thing. Even my like lack of cooking skills, I could make it. So yeah.
Damn, Pat, you're getting gourmet. You're making some ramen eggs over here.
Probably I was watching Google Foods this morning. Shout out to Google Foods, and he made the Naruto ramen, and he demonstrated that. I was like, oh hey, I could make that with no skills.
Did
Perfect.
he actually call it the Naruto ramen?
Yeah, he and his family have been watching Naruto.
See, I don't know if I believe that, man. It's like when you watch Guga, and also I love Guga, great channel, but like he was talking about how he plays Raid Shadow Legends, and I'm like, there's no way you play that.
Why can't he watch Naruto with his family?
I don't know. I guess it'd be weirder things. I mean, what's her name? Megan the Stallion. She's a big Naruto fan, and one of her songs she mentions how she tries to find a Sasuke in her life.
I think a lot of people are Naruto fans. It is super common nowadays.
I don't know, man. Naruto never really got into it. I feel like of like the old school big three anime, I think Naruto was actually the worst one. Actually, Bleach was pretty bad too.
Yeah,
What?
because
What?
yeah,
Go on.
I mean, here on Natty News, we stand One Piece. That is where it's at.
Actually, no, completely. Especially now. I mean, Kaido, man, what a natty legend.
Yeah, and speaking of natty legends, well, actually, we're not there quite yet today. But our topic today, we're going to be talking about equipment, right?
Definitely, man. We're going to talk about equipment. This is one that I am very passionate about. Well, passionate about not using any. But no, equipment, like I think this is a really good topic because I've had so many people ask me about like, oh, should I get this? Should I buy this? Like, is this important? Will this keep me safe? And I think it'd be great to maybe have a conversation and hear what you think and see what we both agree on and what we might not agree on.
Definitely. I think one of the most kind of nerve-wracking parts about people getting started in fitness is almost the first question is always, what should we buy? Like, really, like every single person, right? And I think hopefully we can come out of this episode with some clarity for you, the listener, on what type of equipment might be pertinent to your goals.
Yeah, and see, I think funny enough, I think one of the reasons why I liked lifting so much in like high school and stuff is because of how cheap it was. Like, it's a little funny now about how people want to like they spend like $300 on workout outfits and all that. Nothing wrong with that, but I remember when we first started doing it, it was like, okay, this is like something cheap I can do with my friends, and like it's fun to do. Oh man, like I paying $2-3 to drop in community centers. Those were the days.
Oh man, and we'd be like, oh, like I remember certain community centers would be instead of 350, they'd be like 550, and we'd be like, oh shit, that's so
Yeah,
expensive.
actually, yeah. Oh man. But yeah, so to kind of jump into it, so before we kind of go into some of the specific equipment and stuff, let's just think from like a high level point of view. What's your opinion on equipment, Pat? When you get someone new in the gym, do you tell them to get that new Inzo belt and those SPD sleeves?
Uh, Basically never. Really, most of my clients, I don't recommend they get. I try to keep it very minimalist. Like first of all, like just from a cost perspective, let's not get anything we don't need yet. And I think secondly, overall, you'll find our opinion on equipment is that it is a it can be a kind of an assister, it can be kind of like an extra insurance policy, but you need to be able to lift raw before you're thinking about doing anything equipped and crazy like that. And I think uh, you can have your opinion on this one, but I think if you cannot perform the lift at least to some level without any equipment safely, I don't think relying on equipment is very good when you're starting out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. But I also want to add, I feel like maybe to go more extreme, I feel if you're not competing where the equipment is allowed, I don't think you should even use it. Like, I think if you're just someone who likes to go to the gym and working out, I feel like majority of equipment is kind of unnecessary to also detrimental to your overall gains. About just like using it so much and all that, but we can go more in details of that. But I feel like, oh, if you're competing in powerlifting or in Olympic lifting or strongman or whatever, definitely, yeah, you want to use the equipment because you want to lift more and you want to win, and completely get that. But if you're not doing any of that, or if you're in the off season or just training for whatever reason, I kind of like to stay away from using too much equipment. I feel it can become a big crutch a lot of times.
Yeah, and I can see your point there. We're gonna have some good debates in this one. This is not a episode where Anwar and Pat just say the same thing over and over.
I know it's not gonna just be me agreeing with everything you say because you're the expert.
Yeah, there we go. Well, let's jump into the first piece of equipment. Let's start with gloves. What do you
Oh,
think?
oh man, gloves. Okay, so gloves I think are the most common one people who start out working out want to get. They I see it either they buy it or they always ask like, "Oh, should I get a pair of gloves?" And no surprise, I think gloves are incredibly unnecessary. I guess unless you have very sensitive hands, which could be fair. There are people who that just might be it, where it just irritates them an insane amount that they can't grip the metal and it's just not working out for them. I understand that. That is reasonable. Um, or if you are like a hand model and you need to keep them pretty, understand that too. But otherwise, I feel gloves are so they kind of defeat the purpose because at one point though, you're going to start getting really strong grip and more of those calluses, and you're going to be able to grip more and more weights. And I feel the gloves would be detrimental for your grip strength because you're going to have that extra padding with not much friction to really hold the weight. So it's kind of going to hold you back from doing like heavier deadlifts or doing just lifting up heavier weights. And as well, it's one of those things where at first, yeah, gripping the metal can be a bit uncomfortable. I remember starting out, but you kind of get used to it. It's one of those things where after a couple weeks or months, even, you don't even notice it anymore.
Yeah, you know, and we said we're gonna disagree here, but I don't really disagree on this one. Um, you know, I would say first of all, like if everyone has the right to keep their perfectly nice, smooth hands. I don't have. Oh, you probably can't see here, but my hands are just like they're just zombie hands at some point. But you know, if you need to, for sure, if you're hand model, for sure. But it's definitely not appropriate. I think if you're doing heavy power lifts or Olympic lifts, that doesn't need to be said. But I think for the average person, we always talk about with strength training, there's a lot of character and other things that can build with it. You know, the ability to get comfortable being a little uncomfortable and having a little bit of grip pain is really the most minor of pains that I think honestly, if this you're doing this for the long run, I think you should learn to tolerate this. A couple calluses aren't going to kill you. You know, your parents aren't going to hate you for it. Your girlfriend's not going to leave you. It's just, you know, it's something that you should probably learn to accept and work with, unless you have a really good reason to preserve your hands.
You know, I gotta be honest though, Pat. I wish my hands were callous. I don't think the webcam's gonna get it, but I'll be honest. I have the softest hand of any guy I've ever met. Like, if anyone in Natty News ever shakes my hand, you will be impressed by my silky soft hand. And I mean, I'm a guy who can deadlift like 500 pounds, and I still have these soft hands.
Now
I
my
wish they would
hands are
tell us up.
ripped. Yeah. I mean, I almost have a good reason. Like I like to play piano and all that, and my hands are so gross looking and stiff nowadays from all the calluses I've had.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, even after high school, I did like a little bit of like labor work too, and that was kind of rough on my hands too. But they would never callus up. I always have these super soft hands.
Man, you have the opposite problem. You're never gonna get your badge of honor.
Yeah, I know. I just want to be seen as a rough and tough guy, but I can't with these dang hands.
Tough guy, softy hands.
Yeah, exactly. You're only as tough as your hand. Moving forward though, so we got the gloves, and again, I think that was an easy one. I think most people who lived for a while kind of agree on that. But one which I think is going to be very controversial: belt. So you got the ends of belt. You see those quite a lot, which is kind of cool about how many people are into powerlifting and Olympic lifting and all that good stuff. But what do you think, Pat? What's your opinion on belt?
Yeah, belts are that's a tricky one. I think belts are okay at the end of the day. When you're an experienced lifter on heavy lifts, personally, I think like really heavy deadlifts and squats, it really can be a good insurance policy. Um, Whether or not part of it's placebo, it allows you to get after that really heavy weight, feeling a sense of security. And when you feel secure, when injury is not the first thought in your head, you can push harder. So for someone who's really pushing heavy lifts, it's great. However, I think everyone should be capable of lifting without a belt first. And I really truly believe in that. If you're if it's your first 6 months doing deadlifts and squats and you're belting up all the time, I don't think that's appropriate. I think you should learn how to master bracing, right? Like being able to do it without a belt. If the only time you can brace is with a belt, we've got a problem there. Being able to brace by yourself first and then using a belt as that extra push, as that extra accessory on heavy sets to help get the most of your training. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming with that. I feel like I'm a bit more anti-belt than you because for one thing, I think one thing we can both agree with is that if you're a new person, like maybe sub 2 years of lifting, I think a belt is unnecessary. Um, Especially since you really should be building up that curve strength, some of the like your posterior chain, like you really should be focused on building up that base. And as well, one of the things about a belt, which I think maybe some people might know, is also you brace completely differently with a belt and without a belt. Like when you don't have a belt, you kind of, in a way, kind of suck your tummy in and like get everything really tight in there. But when you have a belt on, you just kind of like to bloat everything out and using the belt against you, that outward pressure to then brace and create an upward motion for yourself. So it's a really different cue. So I feel if you want to do powerlifting or if you want to do a sport where they allow to use a belt, you should definitely train a belt to get used to doing that. But if not, you get so many benefits from not training with a belt, specifically such a stronger core and like posterior chain by having to use your body to brace and handle all that insane weight instead of just pushing out against the belt. And of course, we're talking about gym lifters here. Like I don't expect anyone to be squatting 600-700 pounds without a belt. Like that's wild. But I'm talking about like your 2, 3, even 4 plates. I think is reasonable without a belt, and it's perfectly safe.
Yeah, I think a lot of that hinges on how well you can brace, how well you can retain the brace. I do think, like my stance is that like there's instances where you want that security. For example, if for whatever reason you need to do an AMRAP of deadlifts, which at some point form is going to go a little bit. I think that's like a great idea to do it. And at a certain point, I think if someone has been really prone to back injury, maybe that can be a good way to help them get back to training too. If, for example, if they're rehabbing, perhaps the belt makes them feel safer for them to do, let's say, 315 for a couple of weeks, and then working back to going beltless too. I think it's to me, I think it's a good tool in the toolbox that a lot of people can have.
I would kind of go with your example of someone who might be having a bit of back pain or back troubles. I feel like though using a belt to get back into it would be counterintuitive if they want to go beltless at the end, because again, it's a different bracing style. So if you're teaching someone to use a belt and getting used to bracing that way and then taking it away, they kind of have to relearn the setup. I know from like my time when I used to train with a belt, which was, to be fair, a very short amount of period, when I took away the belt, it actually took a little while to get back used to not using a belt for bracing. It was a kind of relearning the curve, and I didn't feel like I got much carryover gains from that. To be honest, though, I feel there was more carryover gains from training beltless and then throwing on a belt than vice versa.
Yeah, no, I see your point too, and I think a lot of that has to do with how you're coaching, how you're using it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, I mean, I think there is maybe more than one way to brace, but typically when you brace, regardless belt or beltless, you do want to push out. That's something I've been working on because I used to suck in a lot too. But you do want to push out kind of with that imaginary belt there, and I think being able to do that beltless is a skill, and I agree that just putting on a belt and then taking it off is not going to give you that carryover. But if you have the right intent in mind and you brace the same way every time, I do think it can be a useful tool.
That's interesting. I actually didn't realize about pushing out while bracing without a belt. That might be something we could talk about, but I don't want to spend the whole time today talking about belts. Although I do have one more question, and this is for our strong men and strong women out there. I think you might have heard of the controversy of people doing those axle jerks and cleans where they would then rest the weight on the belt. For those of you who do not know, one of the common events in strongman is an axle clean, where it's this really thick barbell, and you have to kind of like shimmy it up on your belly, and it's really cool to watch. And what some competitors have found is they can actually keep it on their belt and hold it there for them to take a second, get a breath, and then bring it up to press. So, in your opinion, and mine as a strongman and strong women fan, what do you think of it?
I think it's okay. First of all, if it's in the rules and competitors use it, that's not their fault. That's more on the fault of the people who make the rules. I do think I don't like the fact that it's like really legal. It's kind of like it's like an artificial shelf, right? It says this is not using your own body at some point, right? You really kind of do have a bit of a tool, and it can make a difference. So it's not truly strong man. It's strong man plus the platform of your belt. Yeah, so I don't love the idea. I think it's legal right now, right? You're allowed to do it.
I think it's like organization by organization.
See, that's more the problem with it too. Like if everybody can do it, then honestly, at the end of the day, who the hell cares? Just as long as the rules are the same, then it's like fair. But if one competition you can do it, another competition you can't, there's someone in the world that's probably really good without the belt method, and some people that are, and I think that creates not so fair sport there.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think the spurt is hard enough where they deserve this little break. Like, I
Fair?
can't even imagine doing a regular axle clean, so I'm fine with these people having this as a break. But it's kind of been fun to watch some of the controversy on it, and it's one of those things where I think both sides have a good point, but it should really just be one rule across all organizations.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it becomes a little unfair, especially once you get into records. Because then it's like, oh, was this record done with the belt used like that, or was it not? So it just kind of creates these nasty gray areas.
Yeah, and you don't want it to ever turn into like some bullshit powerlifting where it's like, I have the triple ply record, I have the 2-ply record. It's like, what is this, toilet paper? Like, why are there so many different records?
Oh man. Well, to go into powerlifting, one of the big ones also with powerlifting is knee sleeves and knee wraps. So for those of you who are not aware, knee sleeves and knee wraps are kind of these like super elastic coverings you can put on your knee. A wrap is like the super long elastic band, really, that you tie around your knees, while a knee sleeve is, as it says, it's a sleeve that you put over your knee. And both of them really help with stabilizing your knee under heavy loads, as well as giving some elasticity to push you up, especially at the bottom. I think we talked about this before, Pat, where you've never really used sleeves or wraps. I've never used wraps, but I have trained with sleeves back in the day. And I gotta say, man, you really feel the effect and the bottom. And as someone who's not the strongest out of the bottom of a squat, it added like 50, 60 pounds to my squat from just that. So it's a game changer, really.
I feel like I'm being kind of now. I'm like maybe I should get some sleeves. I can finally not be a mediocre squatter, but I'm kind of stubborn. I like to lift raw and not use. So as much as I'm defending equipment here, I like to not use extra equipment unless it's needed.
Yeah, well, I think the thing with also, I feel like you might not get as much benefit as me because you are pretty explosive off the bottom and you have a good way of using the elasticity at the bottom to bounce yourself up. For me, I'm not very good at that. I'm kind of, man, I'm like half slow twitch muscle. So for me, I just grind out everything. So I appreciate that extra bump.
Hey, I could always use more balance.
Yeah, but I can start with this one where although it does add a significant amount of weight, I also feel it's one of those things where it becomes a crutch. And I really felt this anecdotally that when I didn't train with sleeves or wraps on, I felt a lot weaker. Like if I could, I felt like there was not much carryover in my strength. And I think for multiple reasons. One, that like my joints and stuff weren't used to the heavier loads because of the knee assisting, like the sleeve helping me lift those weights. And two, I think it was a confidence thing too, where when I didn't have the wraps or sleeves, I didn't feel as confident or as good in those tough squat positions. And again, I feel like if you're not going to compete, I feel there's this more carryover from just training without any equipment than throwing it on if you decide to compete than not. In a way, I kind of feel like when you see people hitting big PRs and not taking away from them, and they have full sleeves, a belt, I don't get as impressed than if I see it completely raw.
Yeah, I kind of agree with a lot of that. You know what? I can take the belt. At the end of the day, like the belt is just like something you push out against, and it gets like a cue to make you brace harder. But with the wraps, like there's an actual like physics. There's of the
Yeah.
elasticity that comes off of it. And while like powerlifting in the sport, it's deemed as raw, and that's all respect to that. That's within the sport. But at the end of the day, it's not really raw. Something is augmenting that lift, and for me, I can't speak on personal experience with it, but what I can kind of bring up is if you are choosing to use wraps or sleeves, it's what's the reason for it. Because if you're just someone training to make your body stronger, improve your mobility, improve sports performance, what's the need of adding something that's kind of artificially augmenting it a bit? I really think wraps are, first of all, they take like 2 minutes to take on. Uh, and take off after sets, right? So it's a lot of work and time, and I like again, like why would you need that if you're just training to get yourself stronger? It's kind of like an extra thing to your body. I think sleeves are more. I can see where people are coming from. A lot of people I know, it just helps them keep their knee warm, and all the power to that. I can see that, especially for weightlifters and powerlifters who sit on their ass for 3 to 5 minutes in between sets. You can truly get kind of cold there, so that's really important. And so I think sleeves I can see. Also, it's just you're not wasting as much time in the gym. You keep them on. Maybe you slide them to your shin at the end of their set. I can see that, but my stance is the same. If you're a new lifter, that's not the way to go in terms of investment. Like learn to lift raw, and if you can't do a squat or if you can't do a press without your sleeve, without pain, then that might be indicating that there's something underneath that you should address rather than just trying to bandage it with a compression.
Yeah, and I do want to say too, though, even with the sleeves, there's some people who go crazy. Like they would have like 30-inch thighs, and then they get like a small, and they just squeeze it in there so they can get like the maximum amount of tension. So I think some people go a little overboard with that too, where it's just like a minute of just getting it up there and cutting off all the blood flow.
Yeah, and I think as I've gone to lifting longer, a question that's in my head is like if I am not competing, so I don't powerlift, for example, who the hell cares how much I can deadlift? Like, yes, I could do more with a belt, sleeves, and straps, but why? Like what does that actually do other than stroke my ego, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, I think I've gotten past the point where I just like seeing a lot of big weight on the bar, especially since I hate taking off the weights from the bar because this is so long and boring. So I kind of try to be like, okay, how can I train hard and get a good workout with using the least amount of weight?
Yeah, exactly. And if ever you do want to truly max out, I think speaking back on competition, you might as well go and compete if you're gonna go and really try to maximize it within the rules. Like go and compete it. It's probably you'll probably regret it less potentially injuring yourself in a true max deadlift on the platform than just do it in the gym and in the kind of a meaningless and like no stakes environment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of a common theme we have throughout this is like what do you really gain from this equipment? Yeah, you can push a little more numbers, but do you really gain much from that? Oh, and then we've talked before about the value of competition. So if you are competing, there is a true value in competition, and you should try to hit the biggest numbers then, and then the equipment makes a little more sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you truly want to maximize that physical potential, go out there, compete. Yes, you might not win. Yes, you might not feel like you're competent, but there's something about it, like really making you feel like you're in a battle against some other people, and competition is an environment that sets you up. It'll bring you to a new level. It'll show you what you're made of, and yeah, you'll be surprised. It makes you a better person. I really do think that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I've got to ask. So, we were talking about knee sleeves and knee wraps. What about elbow sleeves? Do you think those are ever appropriate, or like, what's your opinion on those? They're not used as much. I feel it's more of like an injury rehabilitation tool than a strength tool.
Yeah, same thing as the knees. I think it can help you keep the joints warm. I do think like restricting the elbows is isn't actually performance enhancing. Like, well, first of all, like if you're Olympic lifting, you don't want to restrict your elbows and block it out. That's just like plain a bad idea. I think for bench press, some people might find benefit from it, but yeah, I mean it's okay. It keeps your elbows warm. Uh, yeah, it's okay.
Does anyone have elbow wraps? Because that could be a new business opportunity.
Huh?
Like, have you
That's
ever
a,
seen that?
have you ever seen that?
No, I have. I've never seen it, but I'm curious, like, if that's a use case. I mean, it would work in the same way because the idea is that if you like take your arm straight, I'll see, and then you wrap it up, and then when you bend it, then there's going to be that like elastic tension that will help drive your elbow straight, which
Yeah.
can theoretically increase it. So I'm wondering if we do it for the knees, why don't we do it for the elbows? Maybe it's too much first or something.
I don't know. Stay tuned for Natty News brand elbow sleeves.
Elbow wrap, we're gonna be the first one because like there's a whole slingshot thing that made Mark
Yeah.
Bell a millionaire.
Yeah. That's not legal though in competition. I wonder if wraps are.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I mean. There's probably a powerlifting federation that allows it. Like they have those like triple ply suits that increase your squat by like 3 times.
Yeah, like I'm like all of the respect, but that's probably like the it's pretty not natty.
I always wanted like you know how they do like those sumo squats in those suits. Apparently, like that's the only way you can squat because the suits are so tight that like you can't really squat any other way. Like I always found it so like how do they squat like that? Like it's so uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, like they do like 10-second eccentrics. You're like, oh wow, are they just really controlling? I think they actually physically have to.
Yeah, well, I also think because like they're using such massive weights where like if they're not controlling it, they're just gonna crumble and crush.
Yeah. It's very interesting from like a physics and biomechanics point of view, but not interesting at all from actually just enjoying it point of view.
Yeah, and I mean all the respect to them, like they are some strong, dedicated people, but I have zero interest in doing that.
Yeah. Strongman's a superior strength sport. Just putting that out there.
Oh man, you're gonna be offending some like West Side barbell people.
I wonder if there's any West Side barbellers watching us, and hit us up.
I mean, I don't think any of them are natty either. I think that's kind of one of the parts of the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
All
speaking
right.
of things that strongmen do, straps. Strongmen in competition are actually known to deadlift with straps. Now, Amor, what do you think about using straps in training?
Okay, so here's the thing. Straps, until very recently, I felt like it was silly because, like, even if you're competing, at least in the powerlifting world, you're not allowed to use straps. So, like, why would you ever train with them if you can't even use them in competition? But I actually completely changed my mind because for the longest time, I've been an over under gripper for deadlift. So people who are not familiar, over under is when you take one hand normal, the other one kind of opposite. You grip the bar like that, and you can just grip a ton of weight. The problem with it is because you're not keeping the same symmetry on both sides. It's kind of creates imbalances. You can put a lot of tension on your bicep. I've actually injured my bicep from doing it for some heavy weights, and it also just messes up your setup where it's hard to train consistently like that. And for the longest time, I would just do that. And recently, I realized, you know what, it's not worth it. So I started doing the hook grip. Now, the hook grip is fantastic and painful, but a problem I have with it is if I'm going for a lot of reps, like more than 3 reps, I can't keep it up. I can keep it up for singles, I can keep it up for doubles, 3, 4, 5 reps, no luck. So I feel if you're going for like heavy weights and for quite a few reps, and you can't keep the double overhand or can't keep the hook grip, you might as well just use straps. So it really was one of those things where at first I adamantly hated them, but now I actually really do see the purpose for it. And I'm sure you have a point of view in the Olympic lifting weight, but I'm just surprised of all the equipment, the one I can advocate for is straps.
How times have changed, and I had a perspective shift too, right? Because all through high school and all through probably until a year and a half ago, I had literally never used a strap in my life. Like, I would call anybody out that was deadlifting with straps, like, oh, hey, you can't pick it up with your own hands.
Yeah.
You're not strong. And you know what? If we're talking about pure strength, that is true. I think picking it up with your own hands, like that is truly the natural way to do so, which is why powerlifting requires you to not use straps. But I think there's straps are actually really good utility. I'll talk a little bit on Olympic lifting first. We do it because it's spares your thumbs because we do hook grip. So you put one thumb over and then you've got to cramp it up like that. And we lift like weights for extended periods of times like that overhead, you know, in a wide grip and all that. And that could beat up our thumbs and also down to our wrists and whatnot. So using straps provides a good break from that from very high volume training programs. People actually use it for full snatches and things like that. So that's one really good use of them. But again, as you said, for high rep sets of deadlifts and things like that, it's really good for that. And I also think that for certain exercises, for example, heavy shrugs or even heavy rows, if you are working to improve a weakness, so for example, if your traps are a weakness or if your lats are a weakness, then using straps will allow you to overcome the limitation that comes to your grip and truly burn out that muscle. So for some of you more advanced trainees out there who are really trying to close up a weakness, it can be a great tool. That being said, if you're a beginner, I think you should just learn to lift without straps, flat out, no debates, no arguments about it, because I think grip is one of those things that if you have never strength trained, if you don't have that farm strength, it's just something you inherently don't have. And building it up actually is really good for injury prevention and just sets you up for all the lifts because you always have to grip the barbell, the dumbbell, and we should all spend a prolonged amount of time doing that, even if it comes at the expense of not maxing out your lats or not maxing out your traps. I think it's important to train for a long period without straps. And then once you're more advanced, if you're doing really high volume things that are crushing your grip and you can't actually get other muscles going, then straps are again a utility, but it should not be like a modality that's part of every single set.
I mean, 100% agree. I think I remember reading somewhere where there is a correlation with strength gain and grip strength gain. Like if you just increase your grip strength and nothing else, you would notice an overall strength gain in your other like exercises and lifts.
Yeah, grip strength is crazy. There's some studies saying that grip strength is so associated with lifespan. I don't know if that's like a perfect correlation, but if you just think about it, having good grip is great for everything, like groceries, lifting stuff, carrying stuff, like without, if you have a 500-pound deadlift with straps, but 300 without straps, I would say the 300-pound guy who can do it without straps is probably stronger.
Nah, man, I don't agree with that.
If no, but this is like a crazy scenario. Like the other guy cannot deadlift 300 without straps.
Okay, that's a pretty crazy scenario, but if that's
Yeah,
true, maybe I'll give that to you.
yeah. Like it's a ridiculous. It's not a real scenario, but like if you can't like actually grip that amount of weight, like if your forearms are just garbage and you have crazy strong erectors, I still would probably say the guy with the really strong grip there is stronger.
Like you just have like a Superman V back, but literally just like pencil arms.
Yeah,
Like
there actually like, because I know some guys truly do start deadlifting right away with straps, and that can be a real scenario.
wow. Well, as someone who doesn't have the strongest grip, your whole life expectancy thing means I'm gonna be doing a ton of farmers work. Cause Pat, I want to live till 100. So if I need to have the strongest grip to live till 100, I'm doing it, man.
Again, I do not know what study that was, and I have no backing for it, so take it with a grain of salt.
Awesome, man. Well, one more equipment I want to talk about are wrist wraps because this is one where I see people go to a lot, and it's actually something I've really debated about getting for my own. So, for the viewers to know, not only do I have the softest hands in the entire West Coast, but I also arguably have some of the smallest wrists out here. So like I've experienced like whenever I do like a heavy bench, and also heavy for me, so that's anything above 185. My wrist just sometimes can give out. Sometimes I like roll the bar, and it's just like it's not a good experience. Even overhead press. Um, and so I really considered getting wrist wraps a couple years ago just to help fight that pain. And for me, I started kind of doing more wrist exercises and also focus on motion keeping that forearm tight while lifting. And it kind of went away. So I feel like wrist wraps are one of those things where I could see the use, especially if your wrist bone becomes a limiting factor, because there's a limit to how much you can train the forearm and stuff. But I also feel like it could very easily be a crutch for people not working on everything else beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, my stance on that, man, we're agreeing too much. This is not good. I think it's a good tool to have. I think for bench press, overhead press, jerks, snatches, things like that, wrist wraps can just be simply a way to continue training. If you have not the strongest wrists in the world, but I think on top of that, you need to be working on strengthening your weaknesses. So, for example, like you'll always do your grip work and whatnot. If you know that's a weakness, you should be working on it. And if you're just relying on the wrist wraps to overcome your weak wrist strength, I don't think that's so good, because then you're just leaving your weakness out there, and you'll actually make strength gains on everything anyways if you were to strengthen up your weakness and get stronger forearms.
Well, Pat, how about if I am a bodybuilder and I want my wrist to stay small so it makes my like top of my forearm look bigger and my bicep look bigger? What do you have to say about that?
I would say that I don't think I've seen many bodybuilders whose forearms are too big, and I think forearms are actually a very important body part in bodybuilding. I think people have lost Olympias with from having undersized forearms. Like biceps, everybody's got big biceps, but big forearms, that's like hard to get. I've been looking for big forearms for years, and nothing's happening.
Yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, the forearm isn't like a big muscle to begin with. And isn't it kind of the idea of it that it's so much of it is slow twitch where it's hard to get it actually much bigger? Like, same with calves.
It is more built for slow, because it was built for endurance, right? Like it's
Yeah.
built to carry stuff. It's built to hold on. Like your hands are built to carry stuff, right? They're not meant to be like, like extremely quick moving as you work through. So yeah, but I mean, them being slow twitch doesn't make them hard to grow. I think what makes them hard to grow is a lot of people don't put specialized training into them. Like
Hmm.
I think we used to think like, oh, just doing your deadlifts without straps train your forearms enough. Maybe it does, but if we really want them to grow like beyond a certain point, maybe we need to put in specialized forearm training.
Well, I think the only forearms training I do now is shrugs and maybe lunges if you count those because I hold dumbbells. So I think maybe you're right on that.
Yeah, man, like carries and like reverse curls and things like that. I found to be really valuable to getting up my forearm strength and then hence also preventing injury to my wrist.
All right, so we're gonna have the race to who can get the first 18-inch arms and the first 12-inch forearms.
This will be. I hope we I hope we both succeed in this challenge and we just come in completely jacked.
Honestly, I would be incredibly impressed if either of us achieves that.
Maybe 18 inches combined.
Or maybe if we like put both arms together, kind of squish them.
Yeah, yeah, really squish them against our skin. We'll have really big arms.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. Well, I think that covers a lot of the equipment people might see at the gym or might even use. And I think kind of the general consensus is okay, if you're a complete beginner, you don't need anything. Like just get out there, go lift, have some good time and make some good natty gains. Um if you're intermediate, it feels like a lot of equipment can be used as a transitionary period. Like if you feel pain and you feel like it's limiting your progression because of weakness, it can be used to help assist with that, but at the same time, it is really important to face that weakness. And one of the flaws of equipment, I think, is they hide weaknesses. So it can make you think you're stronger in certain areas than you really are. And when you take away the equipment, it kind of shows the truth, which I always think is important. So equipment, unless you're competing, I think should be used actually very sparingly.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think it's a sample size of two here, but both of us have been able to train for quite a long time without using equipment, without relying on it. I actually prefer still not to use it unless I really need to. I'll strap up once in a while for some heavy pulls, but yeah, it's not necessary, and it can be a luxury. I think at a certain point, like for example, to have wrist straps so you can do that heavier set of bench press, or to have a strap so you can go that little bit heavier on your deadlifts. But are you going to make no gains without it? Absolutely not. And I think, uh, first of all, I think your money is best spent on like a good gym to go to, perhaps good coaching, get your nutrition in check, and you know, and if all that is in check, and if you want one of those luxuries, I think then it's a good tool in the toolbox.
Completely, completely. I just remembered, Pat. I have a good old natty story to talk about
Another
how
one.
and yeah, about how I was able to afford my very first weightlifting belt. So this was back when I was 16. I actually worked at a blueberry farm. And I literally would go there in the summer and I would pick blueberries and I would save I would make like man like I think I made like $5 an hour because I was actually a pretty slow picker. Um, but yeah, I would like get that, and then I would save up all my blueberry money, and I bought an Enzo belt. I still have it. I don't know what's in my room. I would love to bring it. I haven't used it in
How
a
much
while.
was the belt?
Man, dude, it was like $120. So that was like a good that was like a good amount of work of picking blueberries for that belt.
Dude, that's 24 hours of work. That's that was 24 hours. Five
Yeah,
times 24?
yeah, yeah,
That's a
yeah,
whole day of work, literally.
yeah. Actually, oh man, yeah, dude. I remember getting that, and like I used to use it a lot then, but then after a while, I realized it wasn't. Well, again, I had more powerlifting ambitions, and now it's not matter matter to me right now. But yeah, I would say if you're a beginner, you don't need to spend your blueberry money doing that. You can use your blueberry money for better things.
Just you know what? Just take some blueberries home. You probably get better gains from getting some antioxidant. $120 worth of blueberries. Oh man.
Well, to be fair, too, like another reason I was so slow is because I would just eat like half the blueberries.
That's where the gains. That's where the 500-pound deadlift came from.
Actually, man,
Blueberries.
that's how I made those gains. Is honestly, it was the blueberry diet. Forget the whey, forget everything else. All you need are blueberries.
I still love blueberries, so I
Oh
agree.
man, completely, I love them to death. But yeah, so that was an Anwar story, but let's talk about a Natty legend story. And man, oh boy, today we have a legend who did some crazy feature strength. And
Wait.
he
Isn't this history? Is this history? Or is
Oh,
this
sorry,
legend?
sorry. Natty history, because Pat and I can confirm this is a real person. And some would approach a little crazy, but he is real. He existed. And this man did some crazy things. So I am talking about the one, the only Maximinus of Greece. Now, some of you have been asking, like, oh, Maximinus? Who is this guy? Well, let me tell you, he was the emperor of Rome. And what was crazy is he wasn't born to no nobility or fancy pantsy job. He was a barbarian. He was just like fighting and doing all of this like barbarian stuff. And the man was so big and so swole, he was promoted through the ranks until he became the emperor. I know you might be asking, how swole and big must a person be to accomplish this? This man was 8 feet and 6 inches tall. Now, like that just blows your mind. Apparently, historians think he had giganticism, like the same thing Andre the Giant had, which I
Yeah.
would feel like would make sense. And there's reports saying that like his pinky would fit his wife's bracelet on it like a ring. So that just gives like an idea. And there's stories of him like crushing rocks in his bare hands, beating Olympians in any competition, stories of him eating 30 pounds of meat and 15 bottles of wine for like dinner. So this guy was just an absolute gigantic guy. And I mean, we know he's natty. There was no trend, there was no clan, there was no test happening back in 300 AD.
Just good old gigantism games.
Actually, man, like that's this is wild. Like, I think the craziest thing is he literally got promoted because he was just so big and strong.
Yeah, I was literally like, whoa, this man is strong. Promote him, all the way up until he became emperor of Rome.
Yeah, like you know how people joke around about Dwayne the Rock Johnson running for president, and I mean I don't know how he does, but like that would be kind of the same thing where like, oh man, you know Dwayne the Rock Johnson, that's a big guy, he should be president.
So what you're saying is this man was the original Rock.
Oh, I mean he was crushing rocks. I would bet my money that he could beat the Rock in WWE for the Super Slam.
Oh, I mean he's 8'6". Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Oh man. So of all of his feats, Pat. Oh, first of all, do you believe he really ate 30 pounds of meat?
Hell no, man. That's like what is he, like Luffy from One Piece? 40 pounds of meat. Like just imagine being 40 pounds heavy after a meal. I don't think he did that, but I mean, maybe once. Nah, not even once. I think that's ridiculous. No way. Maybe 10 pounds. That's already ridiculous. But I could see 10 pounds.
You know what was crazy too is that he actually lived pretty old. Like I think he passed away at like 65, and he was assassinated
There wasn't
because
even a natural death. He just got assassinated.
yeah, and like I know with giganticism, although like it is a tough illness to go through, and people do have lower life expectancy. Like I think Andre the Giant passed away early, so it's kind of crazy that he was able to live that long back then. With if he did have this disease.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. And I mean he was able to have a son and all that. I don't know if his son had like gigantism or anything, but I mean his son got assassinated too. So I mean that's it was a way to end, but that was a tumultuous period in Roman history.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if anyone says that hey, going to the gym is wasting your time, this man became emperor for being swole. So I would say, Pat, I'm throwing in my deadlift and my bench and all my lifts on my resume. Like the next time I apply for a job, they're gonna be like, yo, this is a big guy. We gotta get him a job.
You ain't 8 foot. You're not 8'6". You're over 6 feet, but
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, not. I mean, honestly, if I was 8 feet tall, I don't think I would be an engineer. I think I would be doing some other stuff.
Hey, who knows? Who knows? You could still be an engineer. You still wouldn't make money from powerlifting. Think about that.
You know that's actually true. Nah, yeah. And if I'm the same coordination as I have now, there's no way I'm getting into the NBA. You know, you're right. I'm a little limited. Maybe we could bring back the old school like circus strongman, and I could do that.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if I guess Maximinus was pretty athletic too, if he was able to like rise up the ranks of being a soldier. Because if you look at like guys like Yao Ming who were in the NBA, he moved very slowly, had a lot of injuries, and just had a hard time moving quickly for a long period of time. So this guy was actually athletic at 8'6", and that's crazy. Like imagine this guy like being able to sprint, like
Well,
that's crazy.
dude, I'm just imagining like if you're a soldier in that time and you see, and like also the average height at that time was lower than it is now. So like we're talking about guys who are like maybe 5'2", 5'3", and then you see a guy who's literally almost double your height coming at you. Like, man, I would just run. Like I don't care about the punch, but I'm running. I'm not fighting this guy.
It comes like a warhammer.
Yeah, like he could pick up my hearse and throw it at me.
It's crazy. This guy was a athlete, man.
Actually, I mean, again, I think the craziest thing is he became emperor for just being a big guy. Like that still blows my mind away.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view, being a soldier, an active soldier at 8'6" is actually very amazing. I don't think any man in history, even people past 7 feet, don't do very well with like regular day stuff, like running around and like prolonged activity. They usually get injured very quickly. He was a soldier, and it seems like he was still running wars and stuff until his death. A 65-year-old man, 8'6", going on wars and running around. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I wonder how they made his armor. Like, I'm wondering if they just gave him like a giant door and just tied that around him and be like, there's your chest plate. We can't make anything else for you.
Yeah, and well, hey, another natty news we're bringing light to another man of history that not very many people know about. I'm actually surprised. Like this story is as interesting as Julius Caesar and any of those other famous Roman ones.
Yeah, honestly, the Romans, they have some good stories. I mean, I think all cultures probably had some good ones, but Rome, they just did a good job of keeping it preserved and writing it down and all that good stuff. But no, at Natty News, we're gonna dig through all the untold stories of these natty guys and girls who just did some crazy things, and we'll let you guys know about it.
You bet. All right. Anything else from you today?
No, I think that's good. You want to close the show?
Yeah, well, as always, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, you definitely should. You get to see our very vibrant faces, facial expressions, and 12-inch bicep flexes every single week. So make sure to do that as we grow. We're also on Spotify, and make sure you're following us on our Instagram at Natty News Podcast. And if you have questions, if you have history concerns, if you have equipment concerns, let us know. We'd be happy to answer you or to add it to our next episode.
All right, awesome. Well, with that being said, Natty News out.
Natty News out.